Why do unsuccessful people hate on successful people? And how do they go from unsuccessful to successful? Let's talk about that real quick. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about how to create your world. And this is the difference between successful people and non-successful people. And when I say successful, what I want to include in this is in my definition of success, that's not only monetary, which most people have, but it also includes meaning and fulfillment. Because let's face it, you can be a billionaire and miserable. And we hear these stories all the time. So let me ask you, is that really success? To me, no. They've had financial success, but they don't have holistic success in their entire life. And this is why people hire a coach. They hire somebody to come in and help them, not in just one specific domain, but have multiple domain success. So in their health, their wealth, their relationships, their time, and actually how they're viewing the world so that they feel this deep sense of meaning, contribution, and impact. That's what we all want at the end of the day, most times, status, influence, mastery, power. But most of the time we want those so that we can have the impact on the world that we want, that we feel is making the world a better place. Obviously, there's a few examples, but even those people think that they're good if you look at them. So what I want to talk about today is how to actually create that reality, because I started off with why do unsuccessful people hate on successful people? And most times they do it out of feelings of scarcity, feelings of lack. And it's so much easier to hate on people, to justify it in your mind. It's a type of rationalization where people try to rationalize their bad to make their own situation better. It's like the old, saying that you can have the tallest building in town one of two ways. You can build a taller building, or you can be the type of person that just tears down all the other tall buildings so that yours is tallest. And that's what unsuccessful people do a lot of times. It's a mentality where they're trying to make their own world better, but rather than focusing on a growth mindset, rather than focusing on things that empower them, instead, what they do is they rationalize. They rationalize in their head all the reasons why successful people are bad. Money is evil. These people, they can't be good people because they have money. They can't be good people because they have good relationships. Look at them. They have a great relationship. I can't wait till it fails. Do you know people like that? I've met so many of these people in my lifetime. In a former life, I was a male dancer, and part of that, I got to see such a broad spectrum of humanity. I got to see so much of what people deal with and how they think and how they interact, and it forced me to almost be a practical psychologist and have to really learn how people work and what their fundamental motivations and drivers are. And that's why this is so important, guys, because what I found is most people don't take the time to sit out and design the life they most love. Now, I'm going to have more videos on this following up because this is longer than we can cover on how to fully construct a reality, but we can cover getting started with that. And so I have a whole pillar in my book, actually. Here's a copy of it. And it's 5 chapters. You can tell I actually read my own book and bookmark it up and reread it. It's kind of funny because you hear principles and maybe you've heard it before, but you need to hear it again. That's why I tell people there's coaches out there, and I'm just doing a quick side quest. There's coaches out there who say, I'm not a motivator. I don't motivate. I only focus on strategy. For me, motivating people is part of the strategy. Think about it. If you were in volleyball or football or baseball, your coaches motivated you. You needed that motivation. Now you needed the guidance, you needed the mentorship, you needed all the other things, but you need the motivation. Motivation is I think Zig Ziglar said it. I like my motivation like I like showers. I like a little bit of it every day. And that's true because things wear off. And so going back to the pillar that I have in my book, I can't cover all that here, but what I can talk about is unsuccessful people don't place an emphasis on constructing their reality and then the habitual daily habits that it takes to bring their desired reality into the present. Because you have to pull that thing in. It's not just going to come to you. You don't just end up with magical relationships. You don't just end up with great health in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. It just doesn't end up. You don't end up just being rich. Now, it's hard work to be rich, but it's hard work to be poor too. And truthfully, there's a lot of people that are poor that are working way harder than wealthy people are. And wealthy people just know how to get more out of less. That's the fundamental of leverage. They know how to get, let's just say, 100 outputs for one input. And on the other hand, poor people only know how to get one output for one input. So you have to think in leverage. And that's part of becoming better, because life doesn't get easier. You just get better along the process. So I want to dive into this right here. So when you start talking about creating your reality, one thing I like to tell people to do is just create a list of all the things that you will tolerate and that you won't tolerate. Hope you can read this. I'm still learning how to write on this thing. So make a list. What are you going to tolerate and what are you going to no longer tolerate? Because we become a society of tolerance. We just need a little more tolerance. Oh, I'm just big boned. Oh, I just have all these reasons I can't do this. Oh, well, I can't make it to work because, I just don't feel like it today. Oh, I've got to sit home on the couch. And the truth is, if you want to get anywhere in life, it's your points of intolerance that drive that. That's known as threshold in NLP language. It is your point where you draw a line in the sand and you say, I'm no longer going to tolerate this. Because if you look at your ideal reality, like let's just say you got your ideal reality over here, and you said, what are all the things that you would have there? And I'm not talking about all the things that you could have. I'm also talking about the things that you could do, the person that you could be. Because those are really a byproduct of who you be, of who you're being going to get that reality, right? So if you said, I want a really good relationship, a relationship that's meaningful and fulfilling, okay, who would you have to be in order to get that relationship? I want a big house and nice cars, or I want a second house. I want a fifth house. I don't care. I want a jet. Great. Who do you have to be to get that jet? And here's the thing that you have to look at. There's a part of you, there are behaviors in this list right here that you are tolerating that you have to kill off. You have to move them over here. You have to kill them off in order to be the type of person that would have the characteristics in order to actually be that version. So here's the thing. You may not have the keys yet. Maybe the reason that you don't have a jet. Maybe the reason you don't have your second jet. You don't have the keys to walk through the door. Here's the thing. It's like the door can be there, but until you have the requisites to actually walk through it, you won't. The door will look like it's open. You'll try again. You may sabotage. You may fail. You have to have the requisite keys. And it's helpful to work backwards to say, okay, if I want to construct my reality, what would your ideal day look like? What sort of work would you work on? What would your relationships be like? How would you feel in that day? So what we're talking about here is actually getting clear on your values. Because if you make your ideal day and you just do a little ideal day plan, which by the way, I would suggest everybody do, create your ideal day right here. Create an ideal day plan and then look backwards. And you can actually look at a values hierarchy and say, okay, what do I most value about this? I value the freedom. Oh, I value not having to look at the prices on things at grocery stores. I value being able to wake up. And one of my favorite things here in the summer, I'm outside of Boise, Idaho, is I wake up and normally I do cardio. But this summer, we've got like 15 hummingbirds up here. And I just sit there with coffee for 20, 30 minutes. And I just enjoy it. And that's meaningful to me. That's a part of my day right now. And it's a part of my day because I've worked to construct my reality so that I can actually do that. So that I can actually have the flexibility in my schedule to say, you know what, this is a priority. I'm doing this right here. This brings me fulfillment. This brings me peace. This brings me satisfaction. And I only get to do that because I've been intentional. Unsuccessful people aren't intentional about what they do in their life. So I actually want to back up here real quick. Hope I'm not skipping around too much. But what I want to back up with is here's the things about what you tolerate and you don't tolerate. Because it's so easy to be like, I'm no longer going to tolerate, shoving food in my mouth, or I'm no longer going to tolerate this behavior. But then you find yourself relapsing. Let's face it. Have you ever told yourself to do something and you're like, yeah, bro, I'm going to do it. Like, that's it. I'm going to the gym 5 days a week for 3 hours a day. And then you don't do it. Pardon me there. One of the reasons that you don't do it is because back here, you have, we'll just say, a duality between you. And in that, you have your beliefs. And you have your beliefs about what's possible, what's not possible. And it's hard to see outside of those beliefs. It's hard to actually look at your life and recognize that the results that you're getting ultimately are oftentimes a reflection of the underlying beliefs that you have about life. So I'll give you a quick example. Like, let's say you have a belief about how something is going to turn out. You're going to go to an art painting class on a date. And you think about this date and you think, you know what, it's probably not going to go so well. So I don't know, should I even show up? And then along with that, you keep telling yourself this story, this person seems kind of creepy. And what oftentimes happens is those beliefs actually carry out the reason that it may be a poor experience. Now, what you have also there is you have another person. And if that person shows up strong enough with beliefs that are stronger than yours, then they can break those false beliefs and you can actually have a great time. But that goes into a different thing. What we have here is unsuccessful people have these beliefs about how the world works. And those beliefs ultimately dictate what they feel, their emotions, their thoughts. And those thoughts go on to dictate their actions, and their actions lead their results. And oftentimes the results reinforce the underlying belief. And that's just a simple fact of humanity. And you can see this play out over and over again. Once you see this, you can't unsee it. You see people doing things and they're sabotaging and whatever else. And you say, well, what's going on there? And the first thing that they'll do is they'll resist getting on truth. This is the biggest barrier for so many people, is actually being able to confront themselves in the mirror, look at themselves, sit with the truth, and actually say, you know what? I'm not happy about some of my habits. I'm not satisfied with my relationships. I'm not satisfied with my job. And to actually admit that, and then to understand that whether it's your relationships, it's your health, or it's your job, those may not be your fault, but they are your responsibility. They are your responsibility. You have to handle them. And so if you don't handle them, nobody else is going to handle them for you. So it's up to you to do that. So if you want to create your reality, a helpful first thing to do is come over here and just make a tolerate and not tolerate, right? You got to get rid of stuff. But people don't like vacuums. Your mind doesn't like a vacuum. That's why people are scrolling on their phones all day. They don't like a vacuum. People want things there. So what you need to do is actually on your no longer tolerate list, you've got to look at that and say, okay, what have I freed up here? Maybe you're not going to scroll on your phone. Maybe you're not going to do whatever it may be. Well, if you're not going to have your phone an hour before bed, you need to find something to replace that. And what are you going to replace it with? And be truthful about that. That's the most important thing, because it only works as good as you work it. And if it's too complicated or if it's too much of a lift, you're not going to do it. That's why people fail at the gym over and over and over again. It's because they make this big goal rather than a small goal, and they don't build on that. You don't get jacked in a day. I've been working out for over 20 years. So it doesn't happen. But I can go in the gym and crush a 5-hour workout, which I never do, by the way. All my workouts are like 30 minutes or less. But I could go in and crush a 5-hour workout, and I would never be able to do that if I had never worked out in my life up until this point. I would be done after 5, 10 hard minutes. Like, that's it. So I've built up stamina, and you have to do the same thing in your life. So when you look at what you're going to tolerate and you're not going to tolerate, you have to actually put things in the tolerate list. You have to fill that back up. You have to fill that vacuum and say, okay, if I want to construct my reality, if this is my ideal future over here, and like I said, truth, real talk, guys, real talk, where are you now? This is truth, baby. This is like the hardest thing for people to get on. Getting on truth and actually being like, you know what? I'm really dissatisfied. You know what? It's really time for change. Like, I need some rapid transformation, because let's face it, all change happens in a moment. All change happens with a single decision. It might take you 20 years. It might take you 10 years. It might take you 5 minutes. But it all happens in that single decision. I mean, haven't you ever had something in your life where finally you said, that's it, I've had it no more? It was in that single moment that it changed. And you probably followed that change up with some action. And the reason that happened is it probably took you building so much momentum to finally get enough inertia to overcome that and make that change. So what you have to do, you have to identify where you're at now. You have to identify your ideal state, your ideal day, the things that you value. And then you have to say, okay, who would that person need to be? And what can you no longer tolerate about yourself? Do you need to not scroll? Do you need to read? Do you need to do whatever it may be? Okay, sorry, I just got the screen, guys, and I'm still pressing buttons here. Don't even know what I'm doing. But you have to look at what would it take, and there's a whole lot here. I'll go into it in different videos because I've got so much material on this where it's helpful to figure out your values, and then it's helpful to figure out even the beliefs that you would need to have in order to get to this ideal state. Because make no mistake, your identity is at play here, and you actually have to adopt a new identity to be able to get to that new state. And when people talk about identity change, what they're really saying is you've had a restructuring of your paradigm, of your blueprint. And oftentimes it takes conditioning that over a process in order to bring that into reality. But I think Jim Rohn said, you can't change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction. And right now is a chance to change your direction, to say, here's where I'm at, list that out, here's where I want to go. Who is the person that you would have to be to get there? What characteristics would this person have? What characteristics would they not have? What is your current behavior? Okay? And then what can you no longer tolerate about your current behavior if you're going to move closer to your ideal place? And people are motivated more by pain than they are by pleasure. So what I find is really helpful is to create massive pain around where you're currently at. Ed Milet talks about being blissfully dissatisfied. You can be satisfied. You can feel totally happy and right where you're at. And you can also say, you know what though? I want so much more. Because you know you always have more to give. You know you always have more potential. And part of that is that dissatisfaction is what drives people. It's wanting more stuff. But oftentimes people are more motivated initially, early on, by the pain. And so anchor that pain to the point where you say, I can't tolerate this. If I don't stop these things, my life, I'm going to get to the end of my life and I'm going to have so many regrets because I didn't have the courage to go for it. I didn't have the courage to bet on me. I didn't have the courage to go after that job or that business or that person. I didn't have the courage to even bet on me with my health. And then what you can do is you can come back here and you can say, okay, we've got beliefs. What are the beliefs that you would need to have to get to that ideal state, and what are the beliefs that you need to get rid of? Because what it is, to a large degree, to create a new identity is to unlearn. It's breaking the false beliefs that you have about life that hold you in your current position. And what is a belief? A belief is really just something that you're certain over. You just feel certain about these things. Money is hard to make. It takes a long time to make a lot of money. Business is hard. Relationships are hard. Dude, like, relationships used to be so hard for me. They're so fun now. Like, it's total night and day because I've been able to reframe in my mind the beliefs that I have about relationships. I don't see it as work for a relationship. I see it as an investment. I see it as great. I see it as an opportunity to make myself a better person because growth is a high priority and a high value in my life. I realize it's not the number of years that I'm on the planet, it's the number of iterations that I go through as a person. That is what defines people. Have you ever met somebody who's maybe in their 60s or 70s and something comes up and they want to talk like they have a lot of wisdom and they feel validated at this point? They're in their 70s. They want people to take them serious because they've got wisdom about life because they've been on this planet for 70 years. But then you listen to them talk and you realize that they've been here for 70 years, but they haven't learned hardly anything past 20, 25 years. It's such a shame. This happens all the time. And so it's not about, trying to gain the wisdom. It's trying to gain the wisdom in how many iterations you go through in your life. That's why I respected Charlie Munger so much. That's why I respect Warren Buffett so much. Charlie Munger read an insane amount. If you ever read Poor Charlie's Almanac, a book about his life, like, you'll understand. And this guy went through so many iterations. Now, some areas I do think that he could have done more. That's my own perspective. But certainly he was true to himself. Certainly he pursued the things that he was interested in. Certainly he did those things, and he went through multiple iterations, and that's what gave him so much growth. And he's got a huge family. He passed away last year, but he's got a huge family. He's got a beautiful family, and he left a beautiful legacy that has personally impacted me and I'm sure millions of other people. But it's only because he went through those iterations. And so what you have to identify is that if you want to get to your ideal life, it's about going through iterations. It's about evolving. And that's identity change 101. And in order to have that identity change, you have to kill off your old self. You have to kill off those beliefs. You have to kill off those characteristics. You have to kill off those behaviors that are preventing you from actually creating your most ideal world. So guys, I'm gonna make a follow-up video to this. Hope this helps. If you want, I'll put a link to my book down in the comments. This book goes deep. Dude, it's so awesome. I'm so proud of it. And till next time, be great, everyone.